all out of hiding, but you're gonna have to trust me. Just a bit border. How do you like that, mister?
The whole ecology kind of revolves around the player. And that took a combination of playtesting, and it took a combination of just lots of revisions on the technical side. The original design we had for the game really was a bit different. It was more disconnected from the player. So these creatures were just wandering around, fighting each other, and the player really was the wild card. And we've kept that behavior, but we subtly tweaked that behavior.
Originally when we conceived the idea of Bioshock, we knew that one of the core mechanics of the game was to have, you know, different classes of AIs. You know, you've got your splicers that just will attack the player on sight, and kind of they're living in the world and doing their own thing. But you know, they see the player and they're spliced out, so they want to, you know, kill him at first sight.
Part of the reason why I think Rapture's such an interesting place and possibly scary, you get a real sense that it's living, it's breathing, and we really needed to come up with some enemies that look like they resided in this environment, you know, look like they came from this place.
Rapture's gone to hell!
We found early on that it wasn't exactly terrifying when a giant squid comes out and you're standing in the middle of a restaurant. You know, you kind of wanted to see the twisted waiter come at you and see how he had been disfigured through this war over Adam.
The sort of emergent behaviors in this game was another one of our key goals. We wanted to create AIs that reacted in interesting and unpredictable ways.
Getting the AI ecology to work both technically and as like a visceral experience for the player was a big challenge.
We've made the splicers quite unique in how they react to you and how they react to your powers, so that when you light one on fire, it'll run to water. It's trying to survive.
We wanted to take a different, put a twist on the shooter, and have AIs in the world that didn't necessarily care about you unless you chose to interact with them. And it just, again, it lends itself to, or creates a world that feels lived in, and to have these AIs that don't necessarily care what the player does.
Through trial and error, what we tapped into was a very old relationship that people are familiar with. From the time of Frankenstein, you know, through stories, you know, through our history, there is this concept of the benevolent but big and dumb protector, you know, with the, you know, protecting their small friend. And so I think it's something that people respond to almost immediately visually.
The little sister's presence in the game gives Bioshock this moral choice and emotional connection that I think is not something that you see in a first-person shooter, if ever. And here you are interacting with these little sisters, and they're, you know, yes, they have orange eyes, but then when you kill the big daddy who's protecting them, and you just hear them wailing, "Mr. Bubbles, please, why won't you move?" And you're just kind of like, what did I do?
The ecology and taming the big daddies and little sisters, and being able to know how they're going to behave and how they're going to move through the space is one of the great challenges of designing the levels in Bioshock. Again, because we're trying to foster the emergence, but at the same time we are telling a very specific story.
Bioshock offers the player so many ways to deal with situations and everything, and the big daddies present the ultimate combat situation. They're tough, they're fast, they're, you know, they have the potential to keep following you into another room where maybe there are more AIs, and suddenly you're dealing with 3 or 4 enemies versus just the big daddy, and it gets really intense.
We definitely have climactic, traditional boss fights that you'd see in other shooters, as well as our big daddies and little sisters. And those are usually with splicers that you come to know through the storyline, and then reaches a culmination and a conflict between them. There's probably about 4 or 5 in the game.
When these AIs meet each other, sometimes they'll get into a fight and sometimes they won't. So you don't really know what you're going to come across when you enter their world.
You'll actually see them interact where if the splicer gets too close to the little sister, the Big Daddy will get mad just like he will with the player and give them a nice push. And the splicer generally will try to back down and avoid them because he can't win that fight. Occasionally you'll see them start up a fight just because they feel cornered or there's some other reason going on there. The result of having those interactions that you're not necessarily involved with but you get to watch is that they're interesting and they're different. It hasn't really been done in a first-person shooter. Usually it's a scripted rail sort of situation where you're just going along and you know, scripted sequences occur.
The end result is that you feel much more a part of this sort of back and forth with the environment that you're moving through in the game.